Welcome to the story of Lucas Harris, a man once betrayed in both life and business. But can someone truly rise from the ashes? When betrayed by the ones closest to him, when everything seems to crumble, is there still hope for the future? Join me as we follow Lucas's emotional journey, from a failed businessman to someone who rebuilds not just his career, but his life and his trust in himself. Every choice, every decision leads him to a future no one could have anticipated. Discover this inspiring story and the lessons Lucas learns along the way. Can Lucas find himself again, and dare to dream of a new life free from the shadows of his past? Let's begin this thrilling and unpredictable journey right now. Lucas Harris woke up to the soft hum of his phone alarm. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm glow over the skyline of the city. He stretched out, feeling the weight of a successful week behind him. The city seemed to echo his mood, bustling and alive with opportunity. He glanced at his phone, and there it was, a message from his wife, Emily. "Good morning, my love. I hope today brings you as much joy as you bring me. Can't wait to see you tonight." A smile tugged at the corner of his lips. They had been married for 6 years, and while they were both busy with their own careers, their love had remained strong. In fact, tonight was their anniversary, and Lucas had been planning something special to surprise her. He had made reservations at her favorite restaurant, a luxury spot on the top floor of the tallest building in the city. He couldn't wait to see the smile on her face when he revealed his surprise. Lucas quickly got out of bed and started preparing for another day in the world of tech. His company was thriving, his startup was making waves, and investors were lining up to back his latest innovation. He was on top of the world. But little did he know, that would all change in the hours to come. The day had gone smoothly, until it didn't. Lucas was in the middle of a meeting when he received an unexpected notification on his phone. It was a message from his best friend, Natalie, a reminder about the dinner plans for their anniversary. Lucas smiled and responded quickly, then tucked his phone away. When the meeting ended, he decided to check in on his business emails before heading out. That's when it happened. His email inbox had a new message. It wasn't from one of his colleagues, nor was it a client. It was from his private investigator, Mark, who he had hired months ago to keep an eye on his competitors. The subject line read, "Urgent, new findings." Curiosity piqued, Lucas opened the message. Attached were a series of screenshots from an encrypted messaging app, a conversation between Emily and David Carter. Lucas's heart sank as he read through their messages. They weren't just talking about business. They were planning something much more sinister, something personal. Emily had been seeing David for months, and the messages suggested they were working together to undermine Lucas's company. Emily had been feeding David insider information, helping him gain an advantage over Lucas's firm. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. Not only had his wife been unfaithful, but she had also been involved in corporate espionage. Lucas sat motionless for a long time, staring at the screen, the weight of the discovery sinking deeper into his chest. After the initial shock had worn off, anger took its place. Lucas knew he needed to act quickly. He couldn't just let this slide, especially when his livelihood was at stake. He reached out to Mark, instructing him to gather more evidence, this time, not just on Emily and David's affair, but also on their attempts to steal his intellectual property. Lucas pored over his company's financials, safeguarding his assets while preparing a counterstrike. His tech company, which had been built from the ground up, was his pride and joy. There was no way he would let David Carter destroy everything he had worked so hard for. Days turned into weeks as Lucas silently gathered information. He secured new patents, ensured that his confidential documents were locked away, and strengthened his ties with key investors. But beneath all of that, he plotted his revenge, slow, calculated, and ruthless. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about proving that no one could play him for a fool. He would have his vengeance, and Emily and David would pay the price for their betrayal. Lucas knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed someone who understood the stakes, someone who knew the ins and outs of the corporate world. That's when Natalie introduced him to her cousin, Rebecca. Rebecca was an experienced corporate lawyer, sharp and resourceful, and had been involved in some of the most high-stakes mergers and acquisitions in the industry. She knew exactly how to navigate the legal landscape, and more importantly, she knew how to destroy someone's reputation in the business world. Lucas hesitated at first, unsure if he could trust her. But Rebecca quickly proved her worth. She offered advice on how to expose David and Emily's betrayal without it backfiring on Lucas. Together, they started digging into David's past business dealings, uncovering evidence of corporate malfeasance that could destroy his entire empire. Rebecca also dug into Emily's past, discovering secrets Lucas never imagined. She wasn't the woman he thought she was. But in a way, that gave him the strength to move forward. There was no more room for sentiment. Only strategy. Lucas had been planning the gala for months. It was meant to be the perfect setting to celebrate his anniversary with Emily, but now, it would become a stage for confrontation. The night of the gala arrived. The restaurant was bathed in soft lighting, the tables adorned with fresh flowers, and the city skyline twinkling in the background. Emily looked radiant, unaware of the storm Lucas was about to unleash. As the evening unfolded, Lucas could barely contain his emotions. At the moment when dessert was served, he stood up and raised his glass. The room fell silent as everyone looked up at him. "I have something important to share," Lucas said, his voice steady but cutting through the room. He turned toward Emily, then to David, who was sitting at a nearby table. "Tonight was meant to be a celebration, but instead, I'm here to expose the truth." Lucas didn't hesitate. He pulled out a stack of documents, screenshots, business emails, and evidence of their affair, and slammed them onto the table. The silence in the room was deafening. The guests looked on in shock as Emily and David's affair was exposed to the public. Emily's face turned white with horror. David tried to defend himself, but his words faltered in the face of irrefutable evidence. Lucas didn't care. He wasn't here for apologies. He was here for justice. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. David's company, once a rising star in the industry, was quickly under investigation by the authorities. The press had a field day with the scandal, and soon, David was facing criminal charges for corporate espionage. Emily, on the other hand, found herself isolated and alone. She had lost everything: her marriage, her reputation, her place in the business world. She was nothing without Lucas. But Lucas didn't feel triumphant. As the dust settled, he realized that the victory felt hollow. He had fought for his company, but in doing so, he had lost the woman he loved. He had no time to grieve. There was no time for sentiment. A few weeks later, Emily reached out. She had lost everything: her wealth, her status, her friends. She was a shell of the woman Lucas had once married. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I've ruined everything, Lucas. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I want to make things right. I want to try to fix this, if you'll let me." Lucas listened quietly, his heart cold. He had heard her words before, many times, in different forms. But the pain of betrayal was too fresh. He had been burned too many times to trust her again. "I can't forgive you," Lucas said softly. "I wish I could, but I can't. What we had is gone. All I can do now is move forward." With the dust settled and the betrayals behind him, Lucas turned his focus to rebuilding his company. He poured his energy into innovation, taking his tech firm to new heights. With the help of Rebecca and Natalie, he expanded his business and strengthened his position in the industry. Slowly, Lucas opened up to the idea of love again, though it wasn't Emily he was looking for. He realized that, in order to truly heal, he needed to rediscover who he was outside of the pain and loss. He wasn't just the victim of betrayal, he was a man of strength and vision. As the years went by, Lucas's company flourished, and his personal life, though quieter, began to take shape once more. There was no happily ever after in the traditional sense. But Lucas had learned that the most important thing was to move forward, no matter the cost. And so, he did. As the months passed, Lucas's life began to stabilize. His company was growing faster than ever, surpassing competitors who had once been his greatest threats. With Rebecca's legal expertise and Natalie's constant support, Lucas was securing deals that would solidify his place in the tech industry for years to come. His name became synonymous with innovation, and soon, he was being courted by investors from all over the world. But as success continued to pour in, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. A rival corporation, one that had been quiet for years, suddenly emerged with a groundbreaking new technology. The company, led by a charismatic CEO named Ethan Blackwell, quickly gained traction, threatening to overshadow Lucas's hard-earned progress. Ethan was a mastermind in his own right, and his cutting-edge product was capturing the market's attention at a rapid pace. Lucas couldn't ignore the growing competition. He knew Ethan had connections, resources, and a ruthless drive to succeed, traits that reminded him of his old self, before everything had fallen apart. The rise of this new rival forced Lucas into a corner. If he didn't act quickly, his hard-earned dominance could easily slip away. The stakes were higher than ever, but Lucas was no stranger to fighting for what was his. The first move came swiftly. Lucas reached out to several prominent figures in the tech world, including influential investors and former allies who had once stood by him during his company's rise. He forged new alliances, consolidating power within his sector. But Lucas knew that more than just financial backing was needed. He needed an edge that would outpace Ethan's new technology. It was time for a risky gamble. Lucas made the decision to pursue a high-risk, high-reward project, one that could potentially revolutionize the tech industry, but also drain his company's resources. He poured everything into it, using all of his experience, intellect, and contacts to build something that could match or even surpass Ethan's innovation. But there was a catch. This project would require secrecy. Lucas couldn't afford any leaks, especially from within his own company. So, he tightened security and kept the project hidden from public eyes. He didn't trust anyone completely. After all, the taste of betrayal was still fresh in his mind. He relied on Rebecca for legal protection and Natalie to handle the public relations strategy. Together, they formed a tight-knit team that worked tirelessly to bring the new project to life. Lucas also hired a few trusted engineers from his old company, the ones who had proven their loyalty in the past. It was a calculated move, but one that gave him the edge he desperately needed. Lucas's new project was coming along smoothly, but so was Ethan's. The rival CEO had a reputation for being a master manipulator. While Lucas worked quietly on his breakthrough, Ethan started to expand his company's reach. He poached top talent from other tech companies, stole trade secrets, and launched a fierce marketing campaign to outshine Lucas's brand. Ethan even began to target Lucas directly, launching a smear campaign that questioned his company's integrity and ethics. With all of the previous scandals surrounding Lucas, his failed marriage, the betrayal by Emily, and the media frenzy, it wasn't hard for Ethan to stir up public doubts about Lucas's character. The media ran with it. Headlines began to blur the lines between fact and fiction. Soon, Lucas found himself under fire once again, this time from a powerful, charismatic adversary who seemed unstoppable. Lucas wasn't intimidated. He had weathered storms before, and this was no different. But this time, he wasn't alone. Rebecca's legal acumen quickly helped him manage the public attacks, and Natalie launched a counter-campaign that highlighted the integrity of Lucas's company. They would not let Ethan's game be played without a fight. It was only a matter of time before the inevitable happened. Lucas's company was hit with a crippling lawsuit. Ethan had found a way to manipulate the legal system, claiming that Lucas had stolen his ideas for the new project. Though Lucas knew the accusation was entirely false, the evidence presented in court was damaging. Ethan had carefully planted fake documents and manipulated a few disgruntled former employees to back up his claims. Lucas was at a crossroads. The lawsuit threatened to drain his company's resources, and with his personal life already in ruins, he couldn't afford to lose everything again. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about his survival. But Lucas wasn't one to give up easily. He reached out to Rebecca and Natalie, and together, they devised a counter-strategy. Lucas knew that in order to defeat Ethan, he would need to go on the offensive. They decided to expose the lies, the manipulation, and the dirty tactics Ethan had used to sabotage Lucas's career. It wasn't a simple task. It would require precision and the right leverage at just the right moment. They needed to uncover Ethan's secrets, the skeletons in his closet. And Lucas knew just where to look. The breakthrough came when Lucas's team managed to track down a former employee of Ethan's, a whistleblower who had worked in Ethan's company for years. This insider had witnessed Ethan's manipulation of market data and the illegal activities that had helped him rise to power. The whistleblower was willing to testify in court, but only if he was given full protection. With this new weapon in hand, Lucas and his team launched a strategic counterattack. They exposed Ethan's corporate espionage, using the whistleblower's testimony to expose the falsified evidence Ethan had used in his lawsuit. They presented irrefutable proof that Ethan had been behind the smear campaign all along. In court, the tables turned. Ethan, once the golden boy of the tech world, found himself facing serious charges for corporate fraud and manipulation. His empire began to crumble before his eyes as the truth came to light. The legal system moved swiftly, and Ethan's company was forced into bankruptcy. Lucas's project, which had been shrouded in secrecy, was finally revealed to the world. It was everything they had hoped for, and more. The new technology outpaced Ethan's creation by miles, and the industry buzzed with excitement over Lucas's innovation. With Ethan's empire in ruins and his reputation destroyed, Lucas emerged victorious. But this victory felt different. There was no sense of triumph or satisfaction. For the first time in years, Lucas realized that all the battles he had fought had been about something deeper than just success. It had been about proving to himself that he was worth something, worth more than the betrayal, worth more than the loss. And now, with his company standing strong and his personal life finally at peace, Lucas was ready to let go of the past. He had learned that success, no matter how sweet, could never fill the emptiness that came with loss. What mattered most now was what he had learned along the way, the resilience, the ability to rebuild, and the strength to move forward. The world of business was ever-changing, but Lucas knew one thing for sure: he would never let anyone take away his future again. With Natalie by his side, Rebecca's unwavering loyalty, and a renewed sense of purpose, Lucas Harris was finally ready to embrace whatever came next. And for the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. The aftermath of Ethan's downfall brought Lucas a strange sense of relief. His competitors, who had once viewed him as a threat, now looked up to him as a beacon of perseverance. Investors who had once doubted his company now saw Lucas as a visionary, a man who had not only survived betrayal but had come out on top, stronger and wiser. But despite the whirlwind of success and recognition, Lucas could not shake the feeling of emptiness that lingered. He had achieved everything he had once dreamed of, but there was still something missing. The memories of the betrayal, of Emily's deception, and the emotional toll of the legal battles had left scars deeper than any business deal could heal. As weeks turned into months, Lucas spent more time reflecting on his life. The company was thriving, he had expanded internationally, launched multiple new products, and built a brand that was synonymous with trust and innovation. But his personal life remained in disarray. Though he had distanced himself from the past, it was clear that the ghost of his former marriage still haunted him. One evening, as Lucas sat alone in his office overlooking the city, his phone rang. The caller ID read Natalie. He sighed, picking up the call. "Hey, Nat," he greeted, trying to mask the exhaustion in his voice. "You've been working non-stop, haven't you?" Natalie asked, her voice full of concern. "You need a break, Lucas. You can't keep running from everything forever." Lucas knew she was right. He had thrown himself into work as a distraction, but deep down, he had been avoiding something more important, his own healing. He had spent so much time focused on defeating his enemies that he had forgotten to confront his own demons. "Maybe you're right," Lucas admitted, his voice softer than usual. "But I don't know where to begin. I think it's time to let go of the past, Lucas. It's time to rebuild your life. Not just your company." Lucas nodded silently, the weight of her words sinking in. It was time. He couldn't continue living in the shadow of his past mistakes and losses. He had already proven to himself that he was strong, that he could weather any storm. Now, he needed to find peace. Lucas decided to take some time off. He didn't want to escape entirely, but he knew he needed to reconnect with himself. He began to travel, something he had never done before, too focused on work to explore the world. His first stop was a small coastal town in Italy, a place where he could breathe, think, and reflect without the distractions of city life. For the first time in a long while, Lucas didn't feel the weight of his responsibilities. He spent his days walking along the shoreline, sipping coffee at quaint cafes, and watching the sunset. There was a quiet peace in the simplicity of life there that he had never known. On one of his walks, Lucas met an elderly man named Marco, who owned a small art gallery by the beach. Marco was warm and inviting, with a calm demeanor that contrasted with Lucas's constant tension. Over time, Lucas began visiting Marco's gallery, and they developed a friendship. Marco was an artist who had dedicated his life to painting and expressing the beauty of the world through his work. "Why do you come here every day?" Marco once asked Lucas as they sat outside the gallery, sipping wine together. Lucas paused, thinking about the question. "I guess I'm looking for something I lost along the way." "You can't find what's lost by searching for it in the past," Marco said with a knowing smile. "You have to create something new. Something entirely your own." Lucas sat in silence, the words resonating deeply with him. It was true. He had been searching for answers in a life that was already gone. What mattered now was creating a future that was his to shape, free from the weight of his past mistakes and the betrayal that had once broken him. As Lucas spent more time in Italy, he began to heal in ways he hadn't expected. The beauty of the world around him, the people he met, and the simple act of allowing himself to relax without the pressure of his career gave him the space to rediscover who he was outside of his success. He learned to enjoy life again, not just as a businessman, but as a person who had the right to experience joy, peace, and even love. One evening, Marco took Lucas to a small cafe overlooking the sea, where they sat and talked about life. Lucas shared his story, about the betrayal, the rise of his company, and the battles he had fought. Marco listened, nodding thoughtfully. "You've come a long way, Lucas," Marco said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "But don't forget to live. Sometimes. The best thing you can do is to let go of the things you can't control and embrace the unknown." Lucas smiled, feeling a sense of clarity for the first time in years. He realized that in all his efforts to control his business, his relationships, and his future, he had forgotten to let life unfold naturally. It was time to stop fighting battles that didn't matter anymore. After several months abroad, Lucas returned to his home city, a different man than the one who had left. His company was still booming, but he now approached it with a more balanced perspective. He had learned to delegate, to trust his team, and to take time for himself when necessary. One evening, as he sat in his office, overlooking the city skyline once again, his phone rang. It was Rebecca. "Lucas, we've got a new project lined up," she said excitedly. "This could be the next big thing, and we want you to lead it." For the first time in a long time, Lucas felt genuine excitement. Not because of the potential for success, but because he knew this project would align with his new vision, one where the business wasn't just about profit, but about making a difference. He agreed to take on the project, but with one condition: this time, we do it with heart. It's not just about technology. It's about creating something that truly benefits people. Rebecca laughed, sensing the shift in Lucas's energy. "I knew you'd say that." As Lucas continued to grow both personally and professionally, he began to open himself up to the idea of love once again. He met someone new, a woman named Sophia, who was kind, intelligent, and full of life. Unlike Emily, Sophia wasn't drawn to Lucas for his success, but because of who he was as a person. Their relationship started slowly, built on mutual respect and shared values. Sophia didn't expect anything from Lucas except honesty, and that was something Lucas had never experienced before in a relationship. It was refreshing. Their connection grew stronger over time, and Lucas found himself rediscovering what it meant to love without the weight of past baggage. For the first time in years, Lucas felt like he was living the life he had always wanted. Not just as a businessman, but as a man who had found peace within himself, someone who had learned that success was not just about achieving goals, but about living fully in each moment. Years later, Lucas looked back on his journey with a sense of fulfillment. His company had become one of the leading innovators in the tech world, but it was his personal growth that mattered most. He had built a legacy, not just of wealth or business success, but of resilience, integrity, and a commitment to creating a better world. Lucas had learned that the price of betrayal was high, but the rewards of growth, forgiveness, and love were far greater. His past would always be a part of him, but it no longer defined him. He had moved forward, embraced the unknown, and created a future that was truly his own. And with that, Lucas Harris found peace, not just in his work, but in his heart. As the years passed, Lucas found himself at a crossroads once again. His life had taken on a new rhythm, one marked by stability and peace. His relationship with Sophia had blossomed into something deeply meaningful, built on trust and mutual understanding. His business had grown exponentially, and the projects he was leading now focused not just on profitability but on sustainability and ethical technology that could change the world for the better. Yet, the tech world had a way of keeping people on their toes. A new wave of competition was rising, startups and tech giants alike, all aiming to make their mark in the same space Lucas had carved out. One company, in particular, caught his attention, Novatech, a rising competitor that had quickly secured a foothold in the industry, threatening to steal away some of Lucas's market share. What concerned him more was the name behind Novatech, Maya Patel, a brilliant young entrepreneur whose ruthless ambition reminded him a little too much of himself at the beginning of his journey. She was smart, innovative, and had a bold vision that could potentially outpace Lucas's own. It was clear that she was willing to take risks, and that alone made her a formidable opponent. But Lucas wasn't one to be easily intimidated. He had fought for his place at the top before, and he would do it again. The challenge, however, was different this time. He wasn't just competing with a rival for market dominance, he was now wrestling with the idea of legacy. What did he want to leave behind? And was he still willing to fight for that vision, even if it meant sacrificing the peace he had worked so hard to find? Instead of approaching the situation with the same combative mindset that had defined much of his earlier career, Lucas decided to try something different. He reached out to Maya directly. The last few years had taught him that collaboration often held more power than competition, and perhaps the industry needed a new approach, one where rival companies could work together to achieve greater innovation. To his surprise, Maya accepted his invitation to meet. They arranged to meet at a neutral location, an upscale cafe in the heart of the city. When Maya arrived, Lucas couldn't help but notice her confident presence. She was composed, sharp, and exuded an energy that made it clear she wasn't afraid to challenge him. "I didn't expect this," Maya said as she sat down across from Lucas, her piercing eyes studying him. Most CEOs wouldn't bother to sit down with a competitor. Lucas smiled. Most CEOs wouldn't. But I'm not most CEOs. I think there's potential for us to work together, Maya. There's enough space in the tech world for both of us to thrive, but only if we stop treating each other as enemies. Maya raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. "What do you mean?" "I'm proposing a partnership. Our companies could join forces to develop a groundbreaking product, something that could change the game for both of us. Instead of fighting for scraps, we could reshape the industry together." It was a bold move. Maya's ambition was fierce, and she had made it clear that she intended to lead her company to the top. But Lucas wasn't asking for control, he was offering a mutual understanding, a partnership where both sides could benefit from each other's strengths. The key was trust, something that Lucas had learned to value above all else. After a long pause, Maya finally spoke. "You're not like the other CEOs I've encountered. You really think this could work?" "I do," Lucas replied sincerely. "But it will only work if we're honest with each other, and if we're both willing to make compromises. I've spent years building something I believe in. But now, it's about more than just building a company. It's about leaving a lasting impact. If we work together, we can create something bigger than both of us." Maya leaned back in her chair, considering his words carefully. Lucas knew it wouldn't be an easy decision for her, but he also knew that sometimes, the right choice didn't always involve fighting, it involved collaboration. It took weeks of negotiation, back-and-forth discussions, and several rounds of meetings, but in the end, Maya and Lucas came to an agreement. They would merge their companies to create an entirely new venture, one that would focus on sustainable, cutting-edge technology aimed at solving some of the world's most pressing problems. It wasn't just about making money, it was about using their combined influence and resources to bring about real change. The new company, which they named Veritech, was designed to push the boundaries of what was possible in the tech industry. Their first major project was a groundbreaking initiative to develop a new type of energy-efficient battery that could be used in everything from electric vehicles to consumer electronics. The potential impact of this innovation was huge, and it quickly attracted attention from both investors and environmental groups. Lucas found himself learning new things every day, not just about business but about how to truly make a difference. Maya brought fresh perspectives, new ideas, and an energy that reinvigorated him. While their methods were sometimes different, they complemented each other in ways that made the partnership stronger than either of them could have anticipated. For Lucas, this was more than just business, it was personal. He was no longer focused on outdoing the competition. He was focused on creating something meaningful that would have a lasting impact. And he was no longer fighting to prove himself. He had already done that. Now, he was simply doing what he believed was right. As the months went by, Veritech began to revolutionize the industry. Their first product, the energy-efficient battery, hit the market with tremendous success, and the company quickly gained recognition for its commitment to innovation and sustainability. Lucas and Maya's partnership proved to be a game-changer, and together, they became a force to be reckoned with. But Lucas also found a new sense of fulfillment outside of his work. His relationship with Sophia grew deeper, and he realized that he had come full circle. He was no longer the man who had been driven solely by ambition and revenge. He had found peace, both within himself and in his relationships. Lucas continued to pour his energy into Veritech, but he no longer defined himself by his career. He had built something lasting, and now, he was able to enjoy the fruits of his labor without the constant pressure of competition. He had discovered that the true measure of success wasn't just in business or wealth, it was in the impact you made and the relationships you cultivated along the way. As he stood at the top of his company, overlooking the city, Lucas knew that his journey was far from over. There would always be new challenges, new innovations, and new opportunities. But for the first time in his life, he was ready to face them with a sense of balance, knowing that the future was as much about who you were as what you did. And as he looked out at the horizon, surrounded by his team, his family, and Sophia by his side, Lucas Harris realized that he had finally found what he had been searching for all along: purpose, peace, and the ability to embrace the future with open arms. As Lucas continued to lead Veritech alongside Maya, their company became a beacon of progress in the tech world. What began as a strategic partnership born out of necessity had evolved into something more, an alliance built on shared values, mutual respect, and a relentless commitment to innovation. Their work on sustainable technology was not just changing the industry, it was changing the way people thought about the future. Veritech's success began to ripple across the globe. The energy-efficient battery they had developed became the new standard, powering everything from electric cars to solar-powered homes. Their commitment to eco-friendly technology had earned them praise from environmental organizations, governments, and even the public. People admired Lucas and Maya for their vision, but most importantly, they admired their ability to work together for the greater good. However, as with any success, the challenges didn't cease. Lucas knew that, with the growing influence of Veritech, the stakes had risen. More powerful competitors emerged, some willing to resort to underhanded tactics to slow down their progress. Even with Maya's sharp mind and Lucas's experience, there were moments of doubt. There were times when they faced setbacks that seemed insurmountable, trials that tested both their business strategies and their relationship. But Lucas had changed. He wasn't the same man who had once viewed every challenge as an opportunity for battle. He had learned, through years of hardship and personal growth, that true strength lay not in fighting every fight but in knowing when to stand firm and when to adapt. As Veritech's impact continued to grow, so did the pressure on Lucas to maintain its success. One day, a new crisis arose. A series of cyber attacks crippled their operations. It seemed like a coordinated effort from a group of rival tech companies, one that sought to sabotage Veritech's growth by stealing their proprietary information and disrupting their production lines. Lucas and Maya immediately went into damage control mode, but this attack felt different, it was more personal. The person behind the cyber attacks was someone from Lucas's past, Emily. After all these years, Lucas never thought he would hear her name again. She had vanished from his life, leaving him shattered and vulnerable. But now, he realized that her bitterness had not disappeared. In the years following their divorce, Emily had reinvented herself and gone into the tech world, using her skills to manipulate and destroy companies she saw as threats, just as she had once done with him. The realization sent a cold shiver through Lucas. Emily had been the catalyst for so much of his pain. Now, she was the very person threatening everything he had worked for. Maya could see the emotional toll this revelation was taking on Lucas. She placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "We'll handle this together. We know her game. We'll outsmart her." Lucas took a deep breath. "I won't let her take everything from me again." I won't let her destroy what we've built." The months that followed were tense. Lucas and Maya worked tirelessly with their cybersecurity team to track down Emily and put a stop to the attacks. The battle was exhausting, both mentally and emotionally. Lucas found himself facing the ghosts of his past, revisiting the feelings of betrayal, hurt, and anger that had defined much of his previous life. One night, after a long day of meetings and strategy sessions, Lucas sat alone in his office. The weight of everything was starting to catch up with him. He had built a company, reclaimed his life, and found love again with Sophia. But Emily's return threatened to unravel all of that. For the first time in a long while, Lucas felt doubt creeping in. He leaned back in his chair and thought about everything he had learned, the battles he had fought, the partnerships he had forged, the people who had supported him through it all. It was clear to him now that this fight wasn't just about defeating Emily. It was about proving to himself that he had truly moved beyond her, beyond the darkness of their past. It was time to end this, for good. The final confrontation came when Lucas and Maya were able to trace Emily's whereabouts to a private server farm located in a remote part of the country. They organized a covert operation with law enforcement and cybersecurity experts to take her down. When the day of the operation arrived, Lucas felt a calm he hadn't expected. He wasn't angry. He wasn't looking for revenge. He simply wanted to protect the life he had worked so hard to rebuild. Emily was arrested for her crimes, including corporate espionage and cyber-terrorism. The evidence against her was irrefutable, and her empire crumbled quickly. For the first time in years, Lucas felt a sense of closure. The past was finally behind him. With Emily's defeat came an overwhelming sense of relief. The attack ceased, and Veritech could once again focus on its mission, creating technology that would change the world. But for Lucas, the real victory was personal. He had let go of the fear, the anger, and the need for revenge that had once defined him. He had come to realize that his journey wasn't just about reclaiming his life from betrayal, it was about learning to forgive and move forward. As Sophia and Lucas stood together, watching the sunset from his office window, he felt a peace he hadn't known before. They had been through so much together, his rise to success, the heartbreak of the past, and the challenges that had tested their relationship. But now, they had built something solid. Their bond was stronger than ever, and Lucas knew that the future they were building together was one filled with endless possibilities. Sophia smiled at him, her eyes filled with warmth. "You've come a long way." Lucas looked at her, a smile tugging at his lips. "We've come a long way." Years later, Veritech continued to lead the industry, expanding its influence and its commitment to creating technology that would benefit future generations. Lucas and Maya's partnership remained a success, but Lucas's focus had shifted. His business, now a global powerhouse, had become a platform for innovation, sustainability, and positive social impact. Lucas had finally found the balance he had been seeking. His legacy wasn't defined by the battles he had fought or the enemies he had defeated. It was defined by the work he had done to make the world a better place, and the people he had brought along on that journey, especially Sophia, who had stood by his side through it all. At the heart of it all, Lucas knew that the most valuable lesson he had learned was not about success, but about understanding what truly mattered. Life was not about outsmarting others or winning at all costs, it was about the relationships you nurtured, the integrity you held, and the legacy you left behind. And so, as he stood on the balcony of his office, watching the city grow beneath him, Lucas Harris felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had truly come full circle. The man who had once been broken by betrayal, driven by ambition and revenge, had transformed into someone who understood the true meaning of success, not in the accolades, but in the peace of knowing that he had built something meaningful, and that, finally, he had found home. And so, we've followed the challenging and emotional journey of Lucas Harris. A man who overcame betrayal and rebuilt both his life and his career. I hope this story has inspired you, just as it helped Lucas find himself and move towards a brighter future. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more about the next journeys, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions so we can discuss and reflect on the lessons from this story. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more exciting videos and inspiring stories. We'll meet again in the next adventures. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.